Welcome back to my channel. My name's Linnea, and this is going to be the first monthly genre vlog. I've assigned a genre to every month of the year, and every month I'll pick a book in that genre, read it and vlog it. You can help me pick the books, read along with me if you want to, that book or something else in the genre maybe. I'll vlog it and we can discuss the book and the genre in the comments. I picked the first book for this month and genre to get us started. This month it's coming of age, and I picked The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This was released in 1951 and is considered a classic in the genre. And we follow Haddon, who is expelled from prep school, now wandering around New York City. Now, the coming of age genre focuses on a character's transition from youth to adulthood, emotionally, morally, and intellectually. Now, these stories often circle around firsts, like first love, loss, disillusionment, some step in the road to independence. The books explore identity, self-discovery, trauma, and societal pressure, usually from a very personal lens. And before we get reading, I just want to give some quick recommendations in the genre. These are all books that I've previously read and enjoyed. We have The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nightime. We follow Christopher, who has Asperger's syndrome, as he discovers his neighbor's dog has been murdered and decides to try to solve the mystery, a mystery that will turn his whole world upside down. Next is Beartown. Now, I wouldn't classify this as just a coming of age story. There are so many themes in this book, like masculinity, societal pressure, small community life, trauma, and many more that revolves around all ages in the book. But my first thought was of the teenagers of this book and how they have to face the brutal reality of the world. And lastly, we have Treasure Island, another classic where we follow young Jim Hawkins as he ventures out to sea to try and find a lost treasure. Now, let's start reading. Okay, let's see if I can express some thoughts about this book. I'm a little more than halfway through. It's going slower than I anticipated. It's kind of a short book, but I've had trouble reading more than one or two chapters at a time. It's like one big monologue where the main character is the one telling the story. That takes place the days after his expulsion from prep school. I'm gonna be honest, it's a little bit like listening to someone just go on and on, like their story never ends and you're just sitting there and you can feel yourself like drifting off a little bit and zoning out. Like, I think that's why I can only read like one or two chapters at a time, because after that I'm almost ready to fall asleep, whatever time of day it is. It is also a bit repetitive. The language is very kind of like he's just chatting with me, telling the story. And he tends to repeat things that he's saying, like just switching the words around in the sentence, but it's just saying the same thing twice. And that happens a lot. He also seems to have these hang-ups on certain aspects of human interactions. For example, one of the observations that he makes is how phony a lot of people are, and that gets repeated a lot. But then suddenly there's an interesting moment and you're like, oh, okay, I thought that I was gonna get through this quicker than I am. It's taking me a lot longer and I'm not as keen to pick it up all the time. But as I said, I'm like more than halfway through. I am interested to see like where it's gonna end up, if there's gonna be some kind of journey within this monologue and where he's gonna end up, if he's gonna have some kind of takeaway from these days. I think that's all I can say for now. Let's chat again when I finish. All right, it's finished. I did it. It was a struggle, but I did it. Yeah, so this book was really not my cup of tea. Maybe you already figured that out. I sort of like the style, that it was a bit different, getting Holden's story through him in like a conscious stream of thought, but it didn't really work for me in the end, for reasons that I've already gone into, like the repetitiveness, things that he focuses on, yeah, stuff like that. Well, like how he gets a bit sidetracked sometimes. I mean, I love a good sidetrack, but they weren't always good. And there were even parts of this I felt was a bit boring, like listening to someone who thinks what he's talking about is very interesting, but nobody else seems to think so. I feel bad for Holden saying that. And there were some parts, like some interactions that I really liked, but they also tended to get interrupted by this rambly inner monologue. And I really get why this is a classic in the coming of age genre. I can see the appeal that it might have had when it came out, and also how it affected the genre. Still, like, sometimes with classics, I feel like that's the most interesting thing about it, the history of it, and it's not quite enough for me. It doesn't carry the book all the way, at least for me, but it is still an interesting story, and I did take away some things from it, and I want to talk about how it relates to the coming of age genre and how it, I don't know, holds up, I guess. So my interpretation is that Holden is resisting the inevitable growing up. He looks at the world around him and mostly seems to see it as fake. There are some people that he deems real, usually people from his childhood, especially his sister. But we all grow up and we're all forced to find our place in the world. It just seems like Holden is really resisting that. And resisting stepping into adulthood is clearly affecting his mental health. He struggles with finding his place and how to deal with the transition, leading to depression and what other people probably deem as immature behavior. We follow him as he spirals downward, wandering around New York City with like no clear direction or purpose. I did like the ending, even though I had a hard time reading through the whole book. So how does it meet the genre? Well, it is clearly a coming of age story. Holden is balancing on the edge, not quite wanting to take that final step into adulthood. And it is an interesting book, and it's probably a book that I'm going to keep thinking about, even though it was a bit of a struggle for me to get through it, which is kind of interesting, and might also be like one of the reasons why it's still so high regarded in the coming of age genre. And if you read along this month, or if you've read this before, I would love to hear your thoughts. Did you like it? Did it work for you? Okay, so next month is historical fiction. I've gotten some recommendations. They were quite long books, and one I really want to read. It was like 700 pages, and I felt that there's a lot going on in the coming weeks with work, and I will probably not have time to read all of it for the next vlog, which is unfortunate. But I do have a stack of books that I last year put on like a limited time list. I have 9 books that I gave myself 1 year to read, and if I hadn't read them in a year, I would get rid of them. So I thought that I might pick one from there. Yeah, let me go grab it. Okay, so this might seem like a weird choice because it is a thick book, but it is All the Light We Cannot See. I think it's in that, I think that's the title in English. It's Ljuset vi inte ser in Swedish. But I do have this in Swedish, obviously, and I am a bit quicker reading Swedish than reading English, so I thought that this could work out anyway. And it's also still a challenge for me because I usually don't read a lot of World War II historical fiction. So that could be an interesting challenge. Why I feel like I need a challenge when I feel like it's hard to finish it in time. But yeah, you know, I don't know how the mind works. But it also feels good to not buy a new one at the moment and read one that I have at home on my physical TBR. So this is what we're doing. This has been on my shelf for a really long time. Yeah, I do feel that it's going to be easier to read it in Swedish, actually. Give me a little bit of a break. And I've said before that I really want to read more in Swedish, more by Swedish authors as well. This is not it. Enriching my own language as well through reading, not just English. So yeah, if you want to read along, please do so. Maybe you want to read something else, or you're already reading something else for historical fiction that we could discuss in the comments later. Or for this video, if you've read something else in the coming of age genre, or in general, what you think of the coming of age genre. And we also need to be one step ahead. The genre for March is feminist fiction. So if you got any recommendations for me, please leave them in the comments. I'm curious to know what you've read and what you would recommend. And thank you so much for hanging out with me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I'll see you in the next one.